Hey there and welcome back to NBA 2K18's My League mode. My name is Pete and today we complete a big action-packed 15-game episode in our My League expansion series, an episode that will take us right to the end of the regular season. In the last episode, the Legionnaires already clinched a playoff spot as the first team in the league, but of course we are not taking it easy just yet, so in today's episode we will try to make sure the Legionnaires stay in the first seed. And we will kick things off with our first of two matches this week against the Charlotte Hornets. Our first meeting with them resulted in a blowout victory, but the Hornets themselves are not entirely out of the playoff race in the East just yet, so a win could be very important here for them to keep those hopes alive. In the end though, it was all Louisville in this one. The Legionnaires sent a strong message tonight. They already had a 20-point lead at halftime and were up to 100 points scored after 3 quarters. 7 Legionnaires scored in double digits and 5 above 15 points, and we also saw a new career record being set. So ultimately, no surprise to see the Legionnaires win this one. Our scoring leader with 24 points, that was Josh Richardson, followed by Anthony Davis and Bryce Johnson, who both had 20. Rodney Hood and Mo Bamba both had very efficient nights, shooting 7 of 9 from the field for 17 and 16 points respectively, while Bamba also added a game-high 19 rebounds. Our wing players off the bench, Flanders and Dennis, both finished the game with 13 points, and the record setter tonight, that was Dante Exum, who didn't score a single point but recorded a new career high with 14 assists. So already a very good start to the episode, and we now continue with the Denver Nuggets, and surprisingly this is our very first game against them this season. We faced them again in just a few days to complete the season series, and to be honest, so far the Nuggets have been a pretty disappointing team. Despite a very good lineup and Nikola Jokic developing into a true superstar, the team is way out of the playoff race in the West and currently only ranks 14th in the conference. And that negative trend also continued against the Legionnaires, who had no trouble beating the Nuggets on their home court and cruised on to another dominant victory. Player of the game honors go to Anthony Davis, who played a bit more than needed tonight. After 37 minutes of action, he finished with 28 points, 19 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals and 3 blocks. The 4 next best scorers then all for wings, both in the starting and the bench unit, led by Richardson with 23 points. Another great night also from Dante Exum, who finished just 2 points shy of a double-double with 8 points and 11 assists. 2 games down and the Legionnaires have already cracked the 50-win mark, and their next opponent on St. Patrick's Day are the Toronto Raptors. So we move from one opponent who's underperforming to the next. The Raptors are currently the 15th seed in the East. They lost both of the games we already played against each other by double digits, and this one was no different. The Legionnaires continue their hot streak behind a monster performance from Andre Flanders, as they easily hand the Raptors a 30-point loss, 119-89. Flanders, the man of the match with a new career high 41 points, red hot from the field, shooting 15 of 21 and also still able to dish out 5 assists. Richardson and Hood both had 16, and especially Hood had a very versatile stat line, while Anthony Davis also deserves a mention with a 12-point, 13-rebound double-double. Up next, we now have the third and final matchup against the Hornets this season, and we jump straight to the results for this one. After the results of our previous 2 matchups, I decided to give Anthony Davis some rest tonight. After all, we're not in a position where we desperately need to win every game. However, looking back at it, this decision might have been a small mistake. After all, the Hornets are still eager to make the playoffs, and so they came out of the gates hot tonight and actually beat us by 8 points. As you can see though, our defense was actually very strong in this game. We recorded 12 steals and 15 blocks tonight. The main factor for the Hornets' success was definitely their 3-point shooting, where they made almost 50% of their attempts compared to our very lackluster 7 of 26. In the end though, the loss here doesn't hurt us too much, and we also got a few good performances out of it. Most importantly, the one from Bryce Johnson, who once again earned the nickname of Mr. Reliable tonight. Johnson only missed 1 of his 10 attempts from the field tonight, and finished the game with a very good stat line with 22 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals and 2 blocks. Flanders and Bamba were the 2 other main scoring options for us this game, although once again Flanders was not terribly efficient. Now, the final game of the week against the Kings is coming up, but at this point I also have to quickly mention the Cavaliers, who have also just secured themselves a spot in the playoffs as the second team in the league. I definitely think that we will once again have to keep an eye out for them. For the moment though, let's focus on the Kings, who also still have some playoff hopes. As we can see here, they are the 10th seed in the West, however just a single win could put them in a playoff position. Interestingly enough, Sacramento also won the first game against us, and even with Anthony Davis back in the lineup, they repeat that feat tonight. As you can see, this one was pretty lopsided from start to finish, and performance-wise we also don't have much to be proud of. Flanders and Davis are probably the only 2 guys worth mentioning. The rest of the team didn't really contribute much, and so the loss here is unfortunately not that surprising. Thankfully though, the Legionnaires now get 3 games to rest, and hopefully in their rematch against the Nuggets they can get back on track. On the right you can once again see the Bulls have also clinched a playoff spot now, and the battle for the second seed between them and the Cavaliers will definitely be interesting to watch. The Legionnaires meanwhile once again have no trouble cruising past the Nuggets. With a big 33-point victory they take the season series in humiliating fashion, as a total of 4 Legionnaires players score above 20 points tonight. Far and away the most dominant Legionnaire tonight, that was AD, who finished with 36 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals and 3 blocks. Richardson had 23, Dennis 22 in only 18 minutes, and Flanders had 21 to go along with 4 rebounds and 8 assists. Now only 9 games remain on the schedule, and for the second and final time this season we are facing the San Antonio Spurs. In Game 1 they fell to us by almost 30 points, however as the Spurs are also still fighting for a playoff spot, this game was a whole lot closer. So close in fact that it went to overtime, in which the Legionnaires then luckily gained the upper hand and earned themselves a 4-point victory. In total, 8 of our players scored in double figures tonight, which I believe is a new franchise high. Still, there was one man who stood out above the rest, and with 38 points and 9 rebounds and only 4 misses on 18 shot attempts, his name was Anthony Davis. Mo Bamba also had himself an impressive stat line close to triple-double territory, with 18 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists and 3 blocks. Up next, we have our quartet of wings, Hood with 17, Flanders with 16 and Richardson and Dennis both with 14. Dante Exum also not too bad with 11 points and 7 assists, and finally we have the ever-efficient Bryce Johnson who shoots 5 of 6, also for 11 points. A new week begins, but first we have to take a look back at the previous one, because with averages of 37 points and 10 rebounds per game, Anthony Davis wins the Player of the Week award for the 3rd time this season. Speaking of awards, Davis has also moved up to 2nd in the MVP voting, where he is currently only trailing Cavaliers superstar Luka Doncic. Not only that, but Davis is also in the race for Defensive Player of the Year, although looking at the numbers here, I would currently say that Joel Embiid is the clear first choice. With that quick status update out of the way, let's move on. We host the Milwaukee Bucks up next, who are, as you can see on the right, currently the 8th seed in the East and could really use a win to remain in that spot. They also actually have a pretty good track record against us, with 2 wins out of the 3 games we have played so far. Tonight though, we were able to even up the series behind another strong performance from Andre Flanders, who came up with a big 4th quarter scoring performance, including the dagger free throws to put the game away. Flanders finished the game with 31 points on 12 of 19 shooting, followed by Davis with 26 and 8 and Bamba with 14 and 7. Now the next game is against the Boston Celtics, who are in a very similar position as the Bucks. The Legionnaires on the other hand have built themselves a comfortable cushion in the 1st seed, and so for that reason I wanted to give it another try. After quite a few strong performances these last few weeks, Andre Flanders will start again at the shooting guard. Richardson will come off the bench and both of them will play in the finishing 5, where Rodney Hood will then sit out. Now, the game itself was a huge success, as the Legionnaires once again comfortably beat their opponents. However, it wasn't much of a success for Andre Flanders, who injured himself after just 11 minutes of action. Luckily though, Mitch Dennis stepped up in our now somewhat depleted wing rotation, and he would actually finish the game with arguably the best stat line of the night, with 24 points, 4 rebounds and 6 assists. Rodney Hood comes close behind with 23, and Anthony Davis finishes just 1 rebound shy of a double-double. Back to Andre Flanders though, because his injury is unfortunately serious enough to keep him out of action for a while. Thankfully, the high ankle sprain here is nothing too serious. Still, for the remainder of the regular season, we will very likely not see him play again. If the timetable holds up though, he should be good to go again once the playoffs start. At the same time, we can also catch a quick glance at the recovery process for Deonte Davis, who is actually on a very similar schedule. Having him back for the playoffs would definitely be huge for the Legionnaires, and it would make our big man rotation even more deadly than it already is. For now though, let's focus again on the present. We still have 6 games left to play, and for our second game against the Rockets this season we have no other choice but to put Richardson back into the starting lineup, and next to him both Danny Green and Devin Reed will also get a few minutes. The Rockets meanwhile are 6th in the West but could still move up a few spots, while for the Legionnaires this game could be the one that seals the deal, as a win here would guarantee us the first seed in the Eastern Conference. And it was a close finish in Houston, but in the end the Legionnaires do in fact get the victory in a high-scoring game. The 4-point win here gives them regular season victory number 56, and it secures the first seed in the Eastern Conference and in the Central Division as well, and it also locks down the best win-loss record of the regular season. It was another strong scoring night from Mitch Dennis, who improved his career high to 31 points, including a very efficient 6 of 9 from deep. Richardson adds 15, Hood and Davis both with 14, Exum has 12 to go along with 9 assists, Johnson scores 11 on 5 of 7 shooting, Chris Dunn becomes double-digit scorer number 7 with 10 points, and finally we have Mohamed Bamba 1 point shy of a double-double, but still with a nice stat line with 9 points, 14 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals and 2 blocks. And so here we are, 5 games are left on the schedule and the Louisville Legionnaires have done it. In only their 4th season in the league, they have locked down the first seed in the Eastern Conference, and their record is also much better than anything the West has to offer, so the Legionnaires will have home court advantage in every single playoff series. For the rest of the season, we are now switching things up a bit. The majority of our starters is now getting some rest, while the reserves can get some valuable minutes to showcase themselves. So heading off to Boston, our starting lineup consists of Dante Exum, Danny Green, Mitch Dennis, Bryce Johnson and AJ Hammonds, while we have Chris Dunn, Rajon Rondo, Devin Reed, Rodney Hood and Festus Ezeli off the bench as a fairly wing-heavy combination of players, and Davis, Richardson and Bamba are getting a few days off, alongside the currently injured Andre Flanders and Deonte Davis. With that lineup, we now face the Celtics, who currently run the risk of dropping out of the playoff race. However, tonight they also didn't really play like they deserved to be in. For all intents and purposes, this was a very important game for the Celtics, but they played like it just didn't matter at all. Even with 5 of our core players sitting out and Rodney Hood only playing limited minutes, we still won the game by double digits in what can only be considered an embarrassing performance from the Celtics. Bryce Johnson was without a doubt our man of the match. His 27 points and 9 rebounds played a huge part in the victory, but Mitch Dennis was also once again strong with 19 points. Rodney Hood actually remained perfect from the field and scored 18 points in only 12 minutes, while AJ Hammonds also had himself a good night with 10 points and 8 rebounds. Our second and final matchup against the Phoenix Suns is coming up, and with that let's actually take a look at the Western Conference playoff picture, in which the Suns currently occupy the 3rd seed, but they could still move up and actually have a chance of catching the 1st seed Warriors. So a victory in tonight's game would definitely help them, and they did get themselves one without much trouble. Now, it is admittedly not too hard to beat a roster mostly full of bench players, especially if one of them gets injured in the process, but we'll get to that. But at least we once again got ourselves a nice performance out of Mitch Dennis. Now, the shooting numbers here are nothing spectacular, but Dennis still finished the game with 28 points, 5 rebounds and 4 assists, while Johnson, Green, Hammonds and Hood all barely cracked double digits. The player who got himself injured in this game then, that was Devin Reed, who suffered a broken right hand and will now be out of action for 2 to 4 weeks. Not a big problem though, as the season is winding down and he's not part of our core rotation anyway, and just a few days later we even get some fantastic news in return, as big man Deonte Davis is finally ready to return to the court. For our next game against the Grizzlies, however, he will sit out. Even though the Grizzlies are not too much of a threat, they are definitely far removed from any sort of playoff race, and being just half a game ahead of the Denver Nuggets in the West, they could actually use a loss to tank a bit and improve their chances at a high pick. Overall though, as you can see here, it was a fairly competitive game. However, that is saying something considering the roster was sending out, and even though the game was close, it was not particularly good. Both teams only hovered around field goal percentages of 40%, both teams combined for 46 team fouls. The final few minutes of this game basically went back and forth from one free throw line to the other, and even though for the entire game the Legionnaires only shot 66% from there, they kept their cool in crunch time and came away with a 2-point victory. Our leading scorer was once again Mitch Dennis, however this time only with 16 points and 7 rebounds. Bryce Johnson gets himself a 15-point, 10-rebound double-double, although his shooting numbers suffer a bit, and Dante Exum, AJ Hammonds and Festus Ezeli round off the list of double-digit scorers. Here we are in our final 2 games of the regular season, and we could still get up to 60 wins, and going up against Brooklyn we're also making a small change for this one, as Deonte Davis returns to the Legionnaires lineup on a minutes restriction. Come playoff time we will definitely need him, so we'll use these next 2 games to ease him back in. It wasn't the easiest game for Davis to make his return though, as the Legionnaires suffered arguably one of the worst losses in franchise history. The team wasn't even able to score 30 points at halftime, we barely managed to get over 60 to end the game, while the Nets had this game firmly in control. They beat us by 33 points and also destroy our hopes of achieving a 60-win season. Still, we have some positives, mainly the performance of the returning Deonte Davis. With 22 minutes, Davis played a bit more than expected, but his performance definitely also justified that, as he finishes with team highs in scoring and rebounding, with 14 points and 9 rebounds on 6 of 9 shooting. No one else scored in double figures, and the rest of the performances here are not really worth mentioning, so let's instead move on to the final game of the regular season. We are facing the Detroit Pistons for this one, who have already beaten us twice this season, and who are also currently on an impressive 9-game win streak. However, they have also already secured themselves a playoff spot, and even though they still have 2 games left on the schedule, they cannot move up or down any further. And that might have been the reason why their win streak came to an end tonight. The Legionnaires take the game by 17 points and tie the season series at 2 games apiece, and AJ Hammonds even produced a new career high in scoring. The top of the scoring list, however, is once again led by Mitch Dennis, who finished with 19 points, 6 rebounds and 4 assists, albeit on a pretty poor shooting performance. Hammonds, meanwhile, goes 8 of 11 from the field for 17 points and 9 rebounds, and as I said, that marks a new scoring career high for him. Rodney Hood also has 17, and Deonte Davis with another good performance as well, 16 points, 12 rebounds, 2 steals and 3 blocks. I think it's safe to say he is ready for the playoffs. And not only him, but Andre Flanders as well, as after the game here we are informed that Andre Flanders' injury has fully healed and that he can step back into the rotation. Before we can make any changes though, we are presented with the regular season awards. And indeed, Luka Doncic continues to amaze. In only his 3rd season in the league he wins the MVP award. With that he breaks James Harden's 3-year streak and cements himself as the new leader in Cleveland. And I think the numbers here definitely justify the award. However, considering that Doncic is still playing with Thomas, Love and LeBron, and that the Cavaliers only managed to get the 3rd seed in the East, I think Anthony Davis, who led the Legionnaires to a fantastic season, would have deserved the award as well. Aces power forward Dwayne Freeman then wins Rookie of the Year, after showing off his versatility and finishing top 10 among all rookies in points, rebounds, assists, steals and blocks. Mason Plumlee then becomes 6th Man of the Year with 9 points and 7 rebounds a night, and I think this is definitely the award that we should have won with Andre Flanders. Flanders finished the season scoring almost 17 points off the bench. His shooting numbers have also definitely improved compared to his rookie season, so this is the first choice that I definitely do not agree with. Joel Embiid then, as expected, becomes Defensive Player of the Year, and he is definitely a deserving candidate. He played and started all 82 games this season, and he finished 1st in blocks per game and top 5 in steals among all centers. The Most Improved Player award then also no surprise. Josh Mitchell already had a fantastic rookie season, but now as a sophomore he already established himself as the Pelicans' new best player, and with averages of 20 points, 11 rebounds and almost 2 blocks per game, his future definitely looks bright. Now, the Legionnaires do not go home empty-handed entirely, because our head coach Jake Thomas wins Coach of the Year in the final year of his contract with the team, and I think he has done a marvelous job improving year after year, up to the point where the Legionnaires are now a true title contender. We will also have a quick look at the All-NBA, All-Defensive and All-Rookie teams, with the All-NBA first team being headlined by the current MVP Luka Doncic. No surprises here, the remaining names also all deserve to be on the list. From our perspective though, definitely a bit sad to see Davis move down to the 2nd team, but also congratulations to Josh Mitchell, who lands on that team as well despite only being in his 2nd year in the league. LeBron James then only makes the All-NBA 3rd team. At the age of 36 he is apparently slowly dropping off, although rating-wise he is still one of the best players in the league. Anthony Davis then makes it onto the All-Defensive first team, alongside reigning Defensive Player of the Year Joel Embiid, as well as Kay Felder for some reason. On the 2nd team we have another appearance from Luka Doncic, who has definitely developed into a very serviceable player on that end of the court as well. In the All-Rookie team then no surprises, the names here are the ones I expected to see. The 2nd team meanwhile features 2 players from the Pelicans, so despite the departure of Anthony Davis, the future looks promising for them. And here we are now with our very first look at the playoffs. As the first seed, the Legionnaires will face the Celtics in round 1, and that is definitely a favorable matchup, as the Legionnaires have won all 3 regular season games against the Celtics. Now, how the first round will turn out, that is stuff for the next episode. I hope the Legionnaires can once again make a deep playoff run. My biggest concern at this point are definitely the Cavaliers, who we could once again meet in the Eastern Conference Finals should we make it that far, and who definitely have not been an easy matchup for us in the past. Still, our roster looks a lot better than last year, so at this point I am cautiously optimistic about the Legionnaires' title chances. For today though, we'll wrap things up right here. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, then please leave a thumbs up. And of course, I also hope that you're as excited as I am to see the Legionnaires back in playoff action. With that being said, if you want to support the channel and haven't subscribed already, then you can go ahead and do that right now to stay up to date and be informed once the first playoff episode goes up, or alternatively, you can also check out and maybe pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.